One of the common problems that small group leaders face in leading a group discussion is that dominator, that person who dominates the discussion, and maybe they have to have an answer for every single question, or they jump in before other people can share, or they have these long, rambling answers. Well, if that person is allowed to go unchecked, then it's going to do damage to the group. The more quiet people in the group are going to just go passive, or they're going to check out emotionally, or they'll quit coming to the group. And not even just the quiet ones, but it becomes an annoyance for others in the group that may just not want to come back to your group. Now, I'm not saying that the person who's dominating has bad intentions. Usually they're eager to participate and they just have a lack maybe of social awareness or a lack of awareness of other people. But if you don't deal with it, if you don't set some boundaries for that person, then it's going to do some harm to your group. So let's talk about some tips on how to deal with the small group dominator. Number one is to set some discussion ground rules. When you're starting a new group for the first time, that's a great opportunity to set some ground rules, to make the expectations clear that you want everyone to participate. You want everyone to have room in the discussion to share if they want to. And later on then in the group, or if your group never had a chance to have that conversation, you can still bring it up. You can express the goal of the group and share that with the group, that it's really your goal that everyone have an opportunity to participate. Now that's a subtle way of saying it, and hopefully the dominator will start to get the picture. Or if one or two people are dominating too much, you can set up a simple ground rule in your group. You can say, we're not going to allow any one person to share more than once until everyone who wants to has opportunity to share at least once. And a ground rule like that can help make it more balanced and more even. Now, you don't need to call out the dominator in public. Don't do that. And hopefully, by setting some ground rules and by communicating the expectations, that will help them to understand what their role in the group might be. Now, the second tip I want to give you is, when it comes to dealing with the small group dominator, to use gentle correction and even humor as necessary. Now, if that dominating person or persons don't pick up on the ground rules, then you may have to intervene a little bit more directly. And if you do have to speak to the dominator or jump into the conversation a little more directly, then you want to do that with gentleness, do it in a casual way, maybe work in a little bit of lighthearted humor. So you might say, okay, Bill, before you say anything, we just want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to participate. So I want to hear what you have to say, but let's let other people jump in first. Or you might want to say, well, it looks like Mary has kind of used up her answer allowance for the week, so who else is going to step up and share with us about this topic? And so you may have to jump in and direct the conversation a little bit, direct it away from the dominator. If you do that, do it gently. Now here's the next tip, and that is to call on specific people. If your dominator is usually very quick to be the first one to answer the question and does that a lot, you can try calling on specific people to answer that particular question. So you could say, John, I'm curious about what you think about this issue. Or if the dominator's a guy, you could say, hey, let's hear from the ladies on this one, or vice versa. Just a warning, don't put somebody on the spot if they haven't spoken before, if they're new. Usually if you're going to call on a specific person, make it someone who is comfortable sharing in the group, but who usually just gets pushed aside by the dominator. So call on specific people. And then I want to encourage you, another tip to help deal with the small group dominator is to use body language. Often the dominator will look to make eye contact with you as a group leader, and when you make eye contact with them, often they interpret that as your permission or even your invitation for them to speak. And so you want to often, maybe then as you ask the question, just look in the opposite direction or look to the other side of the room rather than making eye contact with the dominator. Or another thing you can do is position yourself so that person is not sitting across from you, but position them on your immediate right or on your immediate left. Because if they're sitting across from you, then you'll be making eye contact all the time, and that discussion will turn into a dialogue between the two of you. If they're sitting at your right or at your left, it's a little bit more difficult for them to sense that permission. And so use body language and use body positioning to help keep the dominator a little bit under control. And then, if all of that doesn't work, then at some point you might have to actually just talk to the dominator privately. There will be times when the people who tend to dominate in your group just don't get the ground rules. They don't pick up on the clues that you've been laying down. And so you're going to have a personal conversation. That's a tough conversation to have, but make an appointment or ask them to stay after when the group is over and have a private, candid conversation with them. Now, you're going to do that in love. You want to express to them how much you care about them, how much you appreciate that they're in the group, and you appreciate their participation. You're glad that they're eager to be involved. But you also want to help them understand their role in the group dynamics and give them an opportunity, in this case, to put other people first. Now, without totally curtailing their participation, you can coach them up with a few simple strategies to help them to fit in better into the flow of the group. For example, you could say, hey, Bill, I want you to think about this. What if you always choose to let somebody else answer the question first? And you just choose to never be the first one to answer. Or how about this, that you choose to not answer every question, but just to answer every other question or one out of every three. Or that you choose to limit your answers to 60 seconds or less. And so you can coach the dominator to be a little bit more aware of their own tendencies and to be more aware of and loving toward other people in the group. And so they can still participate, but it doesn't have the same effect on the whole group. Because if you allow the dominator to go unchecked, the group will suffer. People will become discouraged. Eventually, they'll stop coming to the group. But worse than that, we grow in the truth by processing it together with others. And if people just become passive and just start listening to you and the dominator having a conversation, then they're going to be stunted in their growth and in their ability to grasp and process God's truth for themselves. And so I really want to encourage you to find and develop the courage and the skill to deal with the dominator.